another one of them. Oh, is that the other one?
So one of them's going to have to hook up to that.
So I'm going to click to that. There's another one.
Yeah.
And that one's obviously Q and A.
And then that one's just going round.
If the person who's talking hasn't got either of those three, then we won't hear them on the feed.
Okay.
It's that quiet.
Okay.
So
Well, I'll go around this. I'll
it's just letting them guys know whether the lady wants them and nice that.
There's no feedback, is there? They're still bloody eating.
Oh, are they?
Yeah.
We're going to go get this on the right.
Yeah, it's meant to start now.
How long's the Q and A last?
An hour, I think.
I don't know whether this is actually.
Why does that need to be?
I was going to do Twitter.
Okay, so live. And then pump it back into Twitter, yeah.
tea as well. I mean, we're on the toilet all the way home.
Have you got slides, or are you just going to wait for the
No,
questions?
we'll just wait for them. I mean, if sometimes the students are a little bit shy, so feel free. If you want to, get together amongst the staff and get some any questions, because we tend to find once we get late.
Should we do that first? Get into groups, get to write down some questions.
We've done that. We did that at John Moore's, and to be fair, they'll. If you just stand there and say, "You got any questions?"
No one wants to be first.
Yeah. So if you want to, just give them 5 minutes. We can drink a cup of tea. Just say we've got 5-10 minutes, and just get amongst them as lecturers. Say, look. You know, I'll give you some ideas. Like, I mean, this guy's with Ronaldo. What's it like? What we do?
Okay, we'll do that then. We'll just get them into.
What are the challenges working at Hull City as opposed to?
Most of them have got pens and paper, Ruth. Yeah, most of them have.
They don't use them these days.
Or they've got notes on their own. Technology. Yeah.
It's not a couple of years. I'll walk into a shop and ask for a pen. And I go.
I'm sure you don't know what audio tape was. It came out my loft the other day. She's like, "What's that?" I was like, "It's a music card." She's like, "No, it's not. You're joking." I was like, "Serious?"
So, if Mike was to have that. Okay. Alright, so they're going to ask a question. We're going to. Yeah. One of them stays here. So, okay. We'll let them know. Yeah. Right. Spinning the mics. You've got. This one's going to be for them asking the questions.
Yeah.
So we'll go and whoever asks a question, we'll go and give them the mic. Whoever's going to be, yeah, probably good for you that. And then if David wants to talk into this one,
Okay.
that'd be good. It means then with the live stream we can get.
Okay, right, no problem. Yeah. Well, Dave can. Well, we can swap anyway.
All right. Cool. Jamie, this. Just knock it on one more. Yeah. Do you want to set Mike up with it?
Do something at the top so they're looking up at us.
Do you want that, or do you want David to have that? That's just in your pocket and that on your lanyard. It's all on. And he probably won't notice.
I'll hold it if I hold it like that because I haven't got a pocket.
Oh, right, okay. Unless you want David to have that.
Yeah,
You're going to be moving about, yeah?
Yeah, I move about. I can't sit still. I'll sort it out. I'll sort it out. I'll stick it in that. Well.
Like, I'll give them 5 minutes just to get together, one ask questions, and then
Yeah, fine.
hopefully fire some out.
Yeah, good.
Maybe I can get a picture with you if that's all right.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, come on then. You're on.
So we didn't want it with your banner?
Yeah, go on, that'll look really good. I always get busted that I never promote it. Yeah, bye.
This is your banner, is it?
Both of us.
Right,
Yeah.
come on then.
Thank you. See, look, not embarrassed all day. Now I was in front of those and going red.
Have branding in the background.
It's all about branding.
Oh, yeah.
See, it's all about.
That's why you've got all of this stuff.
Yeah, you're right. Good.
Thank you. Thank you.
Amazing them cameras, isn't it? They point it at the ceiling, but they get us three on.
I was like, legit, they've dropped roof out again.
As your pick reading prospectus, open it up like you're reading it.
There you are.
You know these people like
Over my shoulder look sort of thing. One of them.
You look dead interested.
I want the criminology bit.
There you go.
Oh, yeah.
Sports coaching, that's boring.
Yours do my one.
That's it, look at me. Super, thank you.
All right.
As read by.
Bioscience. That's the one, isn't it? Archaeology. Not for me, that.
Ordered a load of plastic bones, like skeletons. I'm digging a plot out the back there, and I'm going to get the students to I've got them trowels and brushes to dig.
It's like you've planted the bodies somewhere and they've gone and find them.
How different would your career have been if you studied that?
Oh, study the mind and body. Try and get into a footballer's head. There's a challenge. It's all about money. They're motivated with money.
Screw identifying the body with their pelvis and that's what I'm doing with your knees.
It's all connected. What I'm thinking, it all ends up down here somewhere. Because I've got lots of money, a nice car, and I can play a bit. That's great life. What's that then? Psychosocial, what's that? All right, posh word for both. Psychology and sociology. Is it? Yeah, it's actually small, but it's got everything. All this building, I mean, this is terrific. A lecture theatre and yeah, it's good because it focuses it focuses attention, doesn't it? The attention is what's on the screen and you. I mean, that's the design of it, but it works, doesn't it? You can't drift. Can't drift on a level room. People hide behind each other or drift, don't they? So this is purely Q&A. There's nothing going up on board at all. What's the point system? You know when they say you've got to have so many points?
Yeah, you get your A levels or your BTECs or whatever, all with points
Right,
to bring you into
university level.
I presume A levels are worth more than BTECs or certain other courses.
Because they all require different points, it says. Some are like 60 points, 70 points, 80 points. So that must be how much you've studied previously then, is it?
It's how much you've studied previously in your institution. Like if you're a top-notch place, you can demand that.
Right,
So
okay.
Liverpool could demand 240 for sports coaching, whereas we should get big, we'd probably ask for like 160, 180.
Right, okay. All right, yeah. Right. Interesting. I think you're using the microphone. No, hang on. Students are using the mic. You're on the stick thing. I've got this. You're on this one here. The big stick thing. That's for the students. That one.
So guys, I think it's alright, you've already got yours on, that's cool. David, you have to speak into that one, so I'll get that mic is important. Mike wants to go walking, you can. David wants to stay there.
Don't sit, stand. I suppose these will come random, won't they? Me or you? Right. Okay. Didn't know you still had them. You still throw them around. Can you get away with that now, though? You can't get away with that now, can you? Can you?
It's a bit light.
It's alright, it's only getting streamed on YouTube. You ain't
Yeah, let's crack on.
Okay, let's find out. Okay, so who's got the first question? Ian.
To me or David? Right.
What keeps the elite players motivated when they've already had so much success?
I think what happens is they strive for success, they achieve it, and then what happens is, depending on the culture you've got within that group of people, it can drive itself, but also small changes you make along the way. So for a coach, my strategy would be to offer them new challenges, do something better, do something more, change something that they've already done, and set them new tasks. Winners are few and far between. There's a lot of losers in sport. Winners are few and far between, but the challenge is to get them to that point where they're in touch of winning, and then it's making them want that time again. Like if I put myself in that position, winning as a player is completely different to winning as a coach and a manager. When you're a player, it becomes about you. It's about your individual attempt at being successful. To try and do that again depends on the backup, the system you've got around you, people who challenge you, and your teammates challenge you to do more. As a coach, you're thinking of everybody, the whole package. How do you make yourself a percentage better than you were this time last year? You're a year older, you're maturing a little bit more, you've got a different idea of where you want to go, and everybody's at a different level, different age group, different level. So you've got to find those small details. And at the top level, the elite level, we're talking about details that big. In the grand scheme of things, you're all studying different things. All that's got to come together, and it's vast. But when you're looking at the individual and the athlete, it's that little bit that you're looking for to make them better. If they can all gain a little bit of that year on, year out, it becomes a little bigger slice. That's the important thing, finding that motivation. A lot, when they reach that certain point, it's the legacy then. It's what they want to leave behind. Do they want to be winners? Do they want to be in the book of winners? Do they want to be able to say, I've won that, these are my medals, these are my trophies? Or do they want to look at the bank balance, because they can get that really early without being winners, and say, well, I'm a multimillionaire now, I haven't really got that drive, I don't need that drive. But the best of the best, they're the best for the reason that they want to go again. They want to do the things that they've done, and as soon as that's been done, they want to do it again. They literally come off that field, they've won the European Cup, they enjoy the moment, but within 24 hours, I want to go on that trip again. I want it again. It's like an adrenaline rush. And it's the same coaching, same playing, it's the same managing. How are you going to do it? Because you know what you've achieved is going to be challenged the year after by somebody else. So you've got to stay ahead of the game. You've got to find that way.
So, Mike, talking about money, have you ever come across any players that seem to just want to play for money?
Oh, yeah.
A lot?
Yeah. Yeah, it goes on because what's changed? Scenario from me to now, right? Me as a young player at 17, 16, apprentice I was then. It's like different now. I was just saying at the table at lunch, I was on 16 quid a week and 15 quid for my mum and dad to feed me and give me a bed to sleep in, and I live locally. That was my salary for 2 years as an apprentice. We used to get paid in cash in them days. And you knew when you were being successful was when you got promoted into the first team and you got a bonus for winning. So 2 points it was then, so you might have got 50 quid for winning, 25 for drawing. And you knew you were successful because your salary every Thursday, your packet used to get a little bit thicker. And you used to feel on top of the world. Then it flipped, and suddenly, just as I was retiring, although I did all right, don't get me wrong, but just as I was retiring, everything took off. Massive deals came in. So what I'm trying to say is when I was 16 and earning 30 odd quid, feeling top of the world, they're probably earning 30 grand now a week at the top end. So I was striving to get to that level. That level's already arrived just by getting there at 17, because clubs now can afford to pay that. So there's a motivation in the wealth, the money, but it comes a little bit earlier now than it does at the end, which maybe, and the question you asked me is, does that lower the ambition? Yeah, it does for some. For others, it's not the motivation. It's the opposite of that. That's there. If you're good enough, it's going to come. You've got to go and deliver. Yeah?
If you was to redo the whole thing of training, would you change anything about what you did?
Ooh, big changes since I was playing. We used to train at 10 in the morning, finish at 12. Sometimes our training might consist of 4 laps around a football field with a cup of tea in our hands because we had a game coming up, just having a natter, then we go and have a bath and away we go. You know, it was, and then we probably play a game, finish a game straight in the players' bar, have a few pints, out we went. You know, roll on Sunday, sleep it off Sunday, come in Monday, do a bit of training, go down the snooker or whatever in the afternoon, kip in the afternoon, all the wonderful things you could do. You know, abuse yourself a little bit. Nowadays, probably impossible to do that. One is, a reason is that facilities have changed. They're huge. The facilities are far better than they've ever been. Players now stay at the training facility a lot longer than they ever did. So they're occupied doing the collective sort of training, but then the individual training. So a training schedule now can last from 9 in the morning till 4 in the afternoon, depending on what you want to do. Some it still stays at a couple of hours because it depends at what phase you are in your career and your development. The boos usually celebrate when you've won something. What changed a little bit was the fact that overseas players came into the scene, which didn't happen in my day as much, and they brought a different challenge. They didn't see alcohol as a way to express themselves like we did. They generally have a completely different attitude to it. Fitness is massive. Alcohol is very, very secondary. So there's a different athlete and a different culture altogether now. Yeah, anybody here? Are you standing up, Dave? What is it, just me?
So early versus late specialisation in football. I know we spoke about it. You spoke about it earlier. And do you think that by getting the children involved in football and encouraging them to take part in football from a young age might lead to social exclusion, potential injury? It goes against the grain a little bit because you've got organisations like Sport England that are, their policies are very much about mass participation, increasing participation in a whole range of sports. But obviously, does football go against that? And what sort of impact do you think that's going to have?
That's probably the longest question I've ever been asked.
Sorry. We've had that for 3 years. So
He wants to know.
Come to one of our lectures.
I think I've just been to one. Early and late specialisation, the evidence is non-conclusive and it's mixed, and especially in football it's also mixed. Some do start early and they're very successful from that. Some do start early and they do burn out, and there are related mental health issues cited due to that, not solely due to that, but that is one of the factors. Football as an industry and the modern academy system and the race for the next big talent unfortunately dictates that we are mining a population of 4 and 5-year-olds to try and get them into systems at the big clubs. I get asked the question a lot by parents. I've got a son or a daughter, they've been asked to go to this academy, should I take them? And my answer is sort of, why are you asking me? Why don't you ask the child? If the child wants to go, take them. Ask them if they enjoy it. If they do enjoy it, they might want to go again. If they don't enjoy it, they don't have to go again and they try something else. And I think sort of the national policy is slightly different in terms of curriculums in schools. They are encouraging multi-sports and different sports. And there are athletes that have got to the top that have come through that pathway as well. I don't think there's a right or wrong. I think you're probably right in what you said at the end. I think you do increase the likelihood of burnout. There are players now, I know of players at Premier League clubs, they may not have even made the first team debut, but they have actually been professional football players for 12 to 14 years.
Prime example of that is Wayne Rooney right now. Wayne Rooney right now is thinking of going to America. Whether he will or not, I don't really know. But you're talking about a guy at 16 who's been in their system since he was 9 at Everton. At 16, he's a fully fledged man, pro, going to Man United as one of the biggest fees paid, going to the biggest football club in the world, and he's now 32, playing at the top level. Top level.
32, I thought, going to America, retiring, he's only young. And then when I considered
the games,
the miles on the clock, the amount of games in football that he's got in it, probably is tired.
And the attention, it's not just the game, it's the outside influence, all that influence over a 16, 17-year period. Believe you me, it's draining. It really is mentally draining because you've got to be on your game all the time, the spotlight's on you all the time, how do you handle it? And yes, you go off the wagon now and again, you know what I mean? You fall by, but that's scrutinised so much now that becomes a physical and mental problem to deal with. So it's not the game's the easiest bit. It's what goes on around it. It's changed so much from Wayne Rooney at 16 to Wayne Rooney at 32. He's actually now, believe it or not, considered a failure. Unbelievable. He's been in the game at the top end for 16, 17 years. I don't see how that's failure. It's absolutely unbelievable success. And there's been others, but I think, having worked with him personally, he's been absolutely outstanding in the way he's handled it. And he's had his ups and his downs. But that's life.
So moving, coming on from that and looking at parents more specifically, within your academy system that you've just come from and from a psychologist's point of view, do you work with the parents and is enough being done because they're such a big influence obviously on players' lives as well as all of you guys? Is enough done to train parents and how to support their young athletes psychologically?
You do work with them, the governing bodies work with them, the clubs do. They have a duty of care. The Premier League, over the last 2 years, have actually started a player care conference, which is centred on, I think it's from 23s right down to the 6 and 7-year-olds. Do they do enough? Can you ever do enough of anything? I think you can always do more and improve it. I think the system's good. I think there are educated people in there, and I certainly think they're making a good effort and trying their best and using an evidence base to be able to deliver education in that medium. The question for me is whether the people are listening, and that then goes back to the parents, because one particular club put workshops on, invite parents in, as well as having reviews with the child. They have reviews with the parents. They also have single reviews with the parent without the child present. But then you don't know what happens in the home, in the car, on the journey home. And whether, is it the child that wants to be a professional footballer, or is it the dad?
Or the mum now.
Or the mum, yeah, it's difficult. It's improving, there's no doubt about that, but how much is enough?
I think, just adding a bit to that, there is an environment now around a footballer. You know, whether you're a Ronaldo or whether you're Ronnie, you know, at sort of 16, there's a package now. It's not the individual. You're not just taking the footballer anymore. Depending on what age group, you're taking a lot of issues. You're taking a family on board now, particularly certain overseas players who are the family, you know what I mean? And even in this country, it's all, sometimes there's a steady family, and then there's the mixed family, and then there's the displaced family, if you know what I mean. But when there's a star comes on board, or there's a potential star in there, it's amazing how it attracts. It's amazing how it comes together, and who then is responsible, you know, for that child. Is it the parent? Yes. Or parents? Or is it the coach or the club? So there's a package now. You're not just taking on board the child, the player. You're taking on board a lot of things. You know, they're surrounded by, well, they can afford to pay for certain things now. As a coach now, I'm the one who works with them all the time. I'm there every day for them. But believe you me, the group around that is not my responsibility. They're outside my remit. They're the people they go home to. And it's agents, it's physiotherapists even, they've even got chefs, you know, because they can afford to have them. And what you have then as a coach is you have this amount of time with them, so you've got to try and train them, get them to believe in you and what you're trying to do for them, but then they go away from that, people pay to tell them exactly how good they are. So there's a force with and against in all that, and there's broken relationships along the way. You just hope that you can liaise well enough to be able to sort of point them in the right direction and that they trust you. I think that's a big element. They've got to trust where they are and the environment they're in, because we are, as coaches and clubs, really borrowing them. We're paying them well, but we're borrowing them, and we have to give them more than just a football education. There's got to be a little bit more involvement in lifestyle, and clubs cater to that. Not all of them, but certainly the top clubs can afford to do that, and they will do that, and they'll follow that through and offer them more, certainly in an enrichment really, and an involvement to a limit, obviously to a limit.
The players that have gone on to make it as well, and what was revealed in the research from the ones at the very top, they did have good families around them. The social support was excellent, and it wasn't forced, and it wasn't totally support in the football context. They actually supported the life,
Yeah.
whatever they wanted to do. They were all in life together. And
yeah.
looking after each
One instance I can give you, there was a young player at Manchester United, I won't name names, and he came into the club and he was 17, teenager. Good looking lad, good footballer, got real potential, loved to train, loved to party, loved the girls, all that went with it. His dad was 16 years older than him. He wanted the same. He wanted exactly. So I got into a situation where he would come to me sometimes and say, "Can you have a word with my dad? Can you just tell him I don't really want him to go out with me tonight? You know what I mean? I don't want him there in the nightclub with me. I want him to go home. I want to go out on my own." I said, "How can I do that? It's your dad." And his dad was living his life. His dad was getting his cast-off thing, if I can put it that way these days. But he was like happy as anything. He's living the dream. The kid's trying to do a bit of football, a bit of everything, just trying to grow up. So there's an instance where, do you venture into that? Because that's dangerous. Because you're trying to work with the player, but you're really trying to give him the opportunity to grow as well. But his dad was loving it. Great. I avoided it like the plague, to be fair. I passed it on to what was called welfare officer, or over to you. It's your job, that. You get paid for that. You get yourself involved in that. Or, see, you've got to delegate now and again.
As coaches, how are you able to control their celebrity lifestyle? So, like, in terms of going out and...
Well, if you live in an environment where you're a star, people tell you where they are. They actually ring you up and tell you, and they've seen them and stuff like that. So you get into a situation where usually Monday morning or Thursday morning, whatever, you always get a phone call saying, "Oh, by the way, I was out with so-and-so last night. He was in this pub till 5 in the morning, or this club." Those days are gone a little bit now. But there's still the ones that want to burn the candle at both ends, and believe it or not, we've all tried it. Success and failure happens anywhere you go. But you do grow up a little bit and you mature and you realise what's relevant, and then you start to really emphasise the fact that if you want to do that, that's fine. But if you want to really do this, you're going to have to make some sacrifices. You're going to have to start to curtail those little events. You know, and I find that a little bit odd at times because it's changed. That social element now has changed. You've all got phones, you've all got cameras on your phones, you've all got Twitters, you're all responding to all that. So no matter where you are, you're traceable. It's no different with footballers. Everybody wants a picture with them and this, that and the other, and it gets back. It does get back. And even I can talk about Man United because I was there the longest. Sir Alex Ferguson would get phone calls all the time because people want to speak to Sir Alex Ferguson. So they'll ring him with a bit of news. So they're doing that work for him. So he knows when a football player has trained 1 minute, but he's in Dublin in the night, down the nightclubs, but he's back for training in the morning because he can afford to do it. Looks great when you go, "Oh, I'm out of the country, nobody will find me there." Little do they know, there's about 50,000 people in Dublin who are Man United fans. Comes back, doesn't it? And they all want to say, "Hello, Mr. Ferguson. Just saw Dwight York out in Dublin." "Oh, really?" There you go. So news travels.
How would that be managed? I was watching a documentary, there was something about Paul Merson when he was at Pompey.
Yeah.
How Redknapp said that he said he was having a bit of a relapse, so went back into his rehab centre, but actually been in Barbados with his family. And he said, but he knew because he came back and he had the best tan he's ever seen, but he scored 2 goals and he said, well, that's Paul Merson, he's working for him, he's working with him. How would you...
Well, it's what outlook you have, really. I mean, some managers are pretty lenient because they'll go with the flow that if you're producing, it's acceptable for a period of time. I think what has changed is it's not just the managers now that look at that issue, whether it's good, bad, indifferent, but your colleagues do as well. Your teammates do. They're in the know. They know when your mood's changed. That dressing room's an area which is pretty ego-driven, success-driven. So if you want to be that one that wants to live that type of way, If you're producing to a point, you'll get away with it. But as soon as that dips, that will come back and kick you. That will come back and on you, because they won't accept that, and they'll drive that. And then obviously things change, and if you're powerful enough and you're a club that's big enough, you can deal with that in one or two ways. You can either demand change by saying this isn't good enough, it's got to be better, the culture's not what it used to be, it's this now, or you get rid. You just go bang, you're out, you're gone. You know, and somebody else then takes over that issue. And that's how it's changed now. Whereas before, you were probably encouraged a little bit because that was the culture to do that sort of thing, but you still had to produce. But nowadays, you've no chance. You've no chance, because as much as you want to be the individual, it's still about the collective, it's the team. Now, if that starts to take over this group of people, then the easiest thing to do is to get rid of that and keep that. You're not going to get rid of what it's all about. And it's well documented now that that happens. It happens every now and again, and it's a big story. Big story.
This is for either of you. How do you guys deal with someone with a big ego?
All the little men syndrome, they have big egos. Go on, Dave.
In what respect? Could you give me an example, or?
Just generally, if they had a big ego and they weren't listening to what you suggested, or?
Sometimes you need it. I mean, you need a big ego to be able to perform at that level. It's just driving it into a context where it's actually fueling or facilitating the process for the performance. And I think if it goes outside of that and it starts to detract from the day job and the ultimate challenge, which is the match, then you've actually got something to deal with and to either reel in, control or stop. But you've got to assess it on its merits, because it could be good. I mean, Nick will probably be able to elaborate a little more on this, but you must have, in a dressing room of 25 people of that calibre, there's got to be some big egos.
Yeah, egos is a funny word, really, because it's how it's expressed. It's like everybody, you know, even the quietest person in a dressing room can have as big an ego as the loudest. It's just how that comes across, and is it, some of it is a bit of bravado, some of it's a bit because that's the way they feel, but they are quite insecure inside, and the quieter ones are probably more solid, more focused, more determined, but are not out there. And it can be difficult. It can be difficult when a lot of people are striving to be successful together, but one wants to be the renegade and take all that plaudits. I mean, we can mention them all, but they actually bring something to the group. They actually bring a challenge to everybody. How do you handle it? What are you going to do about it? Is it an ego that's going to bring success, or is it an ego that's going to destroy the culture? That is something as a coach you've got to really find out. You know, is it a plus or is it a minus? Because when you're dealing with, and Dave said it, 20 odd people in a dressing room are all champions, all of them champions. Some express the champion inside them differently, but where do they want to go? Where do they want to take it? What do they want to do with it? And you've got to get to know how that works individually. Because what's a problem to some people isn't a problem to the others, you know, and I've come across plenty, but if they deliver, mainly they get away with it. I'm not saying in that term they get away with it, you're a blind eye to it, but you actually encourage it because it's bringing out others. It's bringing out others to express themselves. And that's important. That's really important, that when you get that environment, believe it or not, me standing here as a coach, and I don't have all the answers, I never have. I've learned along the way what's good, bad, and what I'd use, what I'd throw away. But they actually challenge you. They challenge you as to, well, go on then, you know. You're the coach, but I'm the player. How are you going to handle me? Show me. And you as a coach have got to have a character in you which can be loud and brassy and even have your own ego. But you can be quiet, unassuming. But you actually, when you speak, they listen. You know, and we know you're all young, but having kids, families, try saying no to your kids now. No, No chance. You can't say that word anymore, because why not? We can. You know, and that's the same with footballers. You've got to explain certain situations to them, why you want them to do that. If they buy into it, or you've expressed it to them in a way which makes them own it a little bit. It's like me giving it to you, but me telling everybody that you came up with the idea. Now there's ownership in there, and it's as if they're bringing something to the table, and it keeps them where the status they want to be at. And I'm not bothered whether I'm here or there. It's neither here or there to me, but I enjoy the success along the way in my own way, you know. And that's how I would handle egos.
What's the best piece of advice you ever given a player?
Best piece of advice as a player: practice, learn, educate yourself on what you do. That was an advice. As a coach, believe it or not, I started at Stockport, Blackpool. They were the clubs where I started coaching, really. Norwich a little bit. But I learnt more at those clubs than anywhere else. I learnt loads there. But when I went to well, the best thing Stockport ever did for me was sack me, to be fair, because I went to Man United as a coach. I sat down in front of Fergie, who was talking to me about the disappointment of being sacked, and then he offered me a job, and I was like, wow, I've only come for a chat and a coffee, but I'm walking out of here with a job, coaching the under-20s, I think it was. And my first thing I said to him was, well, how do you want me to coach? And I've been coaching. I said, well, how do you want me to coach? Because I knew the style at Man U and all that. And his first thing was, you're the coach, I'm employing you to coach these kids. He says, but the bit of advice I'd give you is, challenge them every day. Every day you coach, I want every one of those players to be challenged so that when they leave that training pitch, they're thinking about something when they go home. And I was a bit like, challenge them. How do you challenge talented players and all that? But I worked it out. And it was right from the point of view that like I've said before, I didn't have all the answers, but I knew how to put myself in their shoes because I played there. So I used a bit of that. And I challenged them every day to think about what they were doing. And all those guys who were being coached today, if you observed little bits of it, there was elements I was throwing into them, but there was also questions I was asking of them as to how they see it. What did they hear? What did they see? What's the point of it? That's a challenge. It's a challenge for them. And it's not just about ability. It's tiring being challenged. But as a coach, they challenge me as well. So that was the advice that's always to me, challenge them every day.
What are the largest psychological differences between development and elite stages of performance?
Like it.
Largest, if you go back to the lecture, you've got an average of 50 constructs there. So going back to the mushroom soup analogy, it's different in every single player. There isn't no single difference that someone at 18 might not have that they should have at 25. You might have a 17-year-old that's put into a team because physically he's fantastic, he's very quick, he can handle it, he can handle Premier League football, but his decision making might not quite be there. Tactically, he might be left wanting, he might be found in the wrong areas of the pitch. Whereas you might have someone who's not quite as mature, not quite as fit, but they've got a fantastic tactical brain, so they've got lots of time on the ball, so they can handle Premier League football for different reasons. And I think what you've got to do, the constructs that you saw earlier, they get less. Once you get actually into the first team environment, your requirements get less. And you look at those requirements and identify skills gap between A, B or AC, whatever it is for each individual player. And you've got to work on them, and it then goes back to practice. There's no secret, there is no easy way. It is hard work, it is hours, it is practice, it is challenge, it is critically analysing yourself and trying to get better. And if you're to go in a football club, if you've got 25 players in your squad, and you look at individual training plans, I would argue that you've probably 18, 19, if not 25 different individual training plans, physically, tactically and technically. So to sort of say there is a common gap like that, there isn't. There's no right or wrong. We're all different. And that's the beauty of the game and the beauty of the human race, I guess.
I think therein lies a challenge, because I'll give you an analogy of Rooney. Rooney at 16 was football daft, intelligent football-wise, education completely different to, say, a guy of 23, 24. You know, it was just his cultural background. But there's nothing you could have given to Rooney at 16 that, when it came to football, he didn't already believe he knew. You know, and that's quite a nice thing to have. What you get from the educational part when they're young to when they mature a little bit at 22, 23, they've gone through a certain pathway where suddenly now they've gone from absorption to absorbing everything and looking at you, you know, and when we're doing the grassroots stuff, kids look at you, you know, they're there, they're on you. And it's great because you get that contact. As they mature, suddenly now they've developed this process and this opinion of what it's all about. So there comes a point where some will look at you, some will be looking down, some will be looking all over the place. As a coach then, you've got to think, well, are they taking it all in? What's the mechanisms of that? And that goes back to sort of the psychology side a little bit, is as a coach, I know I can show you something, I can do something with you, I can talk to you, but I don't actually know whether you're taking it in unless I get really up and personal with you and find out what makes you tick. Because you might need to see it, but the guy next to you might need to hear it. So I've got to find ways as a coach to make sure, and I've had this experience loads of times where I'm talking to a footballer and you say, do you get it? And they'll nod and they'll smile and everything. And then within 2 minutes they'll go, what was that you said? What was that about that? And all that, because they'll say they got it, but they haven't. And these are top pros, these are elite. Sometimes it's that reassurance, but it's the mechanisms that they have to absorb that learning process, that status that they've got. How do they do it? And I've got to find a way of doing that. And some will like me, some won't have me, that's just natural. But I've still got to deal with it. I've still got to work it out. And it's an interesting process, but it's shifting all the time. I mean, we were talking at the table at lunchtime. We've worked on a little bit of a system which I had ideas about when I was at Man United. It was only when I left that I found out that this was possible, and it's the virtual reality stuff. We've got involved in it with a company in Manchester. And it's like, Dave found it. I'd talked about it for ages. Dave found this system, and when I went to see it, I was like, wow, it's there. Everything I'd thought of was there as a coach. The tool was there for me to go to that next bit. And we've helped them develop it as a product. It's out there a little bit. It's expensive as hell, but it just shows you that from my point of view now as a coach, I can go on a training ground and do my coaching, but I can now put them into a situation on VR, which is they can relive what they've just done, and I can be in there with them. So I'm now thinking like they're thinking, or trying to find out what's going on in the game situation, put you back into the scenario, centre forward, crowd's gone berserk because you've missed for 5 yards. How did you do that? That's simple. Put him back in. Right, what was going on? What happened? Talk me through it. Let me find out what was happening. Full team thing. You can do it in a full team. Unbelievable stuff's going on. So for me, that's a learning process again for me. How do I bring that to a player? Because some players can develop within that system. You can give them certain situations. You can put them into a game before they played it. They could be playing Barcelona in 3 weeks, so I can put them on the VR 3 weeks before that and put the player against Messi. This is what Messi does. He's now playing it, virtual reality. But he gets an idea straight away. What you're going to do, how you're going to do it. Or after the game, this is what happened. What you're thinking. So now we've gone from DVD, Betamax when I was a kid, Betamax, DVD, to VR. It's like moving, but it's another educational tool. It's another way of saying, well, come and have a look at it. It's interesting. And it's live. It's like real time, real speed. So that's where it's going. That's where it's going, guys. It's happening. And that'll probably be obsolete soon. It'll be something else. Just as I learn it, it'll go. Any more?
Did you enjoy the challenge of the relegation back to Liverpool City?
I did, yeah. Yeah, I enjoyed actually the actual football part of Hull City. I enjoyed the coaching, the managing. I didn't like the other bit of it, which was not being able to get any answers, not being able to take it further forward. My annoyance of it all at Hull City was the fact that I wanted to introduce things that was making what made me successful. They wanted to stay exactly where they were, or even drop below that. And I wasn't in that frame of mind. You know, I was thinking, I can do this, I can do this. These players want a bit of this. Do you want to come on the ride? Do you want to come and have a go at it? But I couldn't have that communication with the people that ran the club in order to do it in that short space of time. And in the end, it's like anything. You hear managers now, they talk about it's results, it's results, it's results. I had a bit of I knew that. Listen, I've been in the game long enough. But I've also got the opinion of the process. That how do you build those building blocks? How do you take players who've been bang average, who've got promoted, got relegated, got promoted, and you think, it's the same group of players 3 years on, 4 years on, and they're always yo-yoing. Where do we go from here? Because experience tells me that's what they are. Promoted, relegated, promoted, relegated. So I was then trying to challenge that system, saying when you've got sports scientists, you've got physiotherapists, you've got analysts, you've got all sorts of influences within your club saying, ooh, be careful. Data's telling us these players can't go and do this. They're in this zone, they're in that zone, they're going past the PBs, and I'm sitting behind my desk as a manager going, go on, then explain that to me. What's PB? That's the best. And I'm thinking, well, that wasn't good enough. That wasn't good enough, so why shouldn't I be challenging them to go beyond that? Because they can do it. Some of them might break down, not deliberately, I wouldn't do that, but it's just a fact of life that they can't get to where you want to go, and then fear sets in because they've never been there before, and I'm frustrated then thinking, I need to change. I change, they change, and I weren't prepared to change. I thought, well, no, what I'm doing is the right thing, and the end result got me out. I can't argue with that. But you've also got to think, and we talk about this a lot, I went into a Premiership season as caretaker manager at Hull City with 13 professionals and 5 kids. That was my start of the season. Stupidly, I won 2 games and drew 1, and I became manager of the month in the Premier League. Where do you go from there? Where do you go from there? Because you know that's not real. It was brilliant, but it's not real. Then you've got to try and get some players in, and your owner's not prepared to do that because he wants to sell the club, and now you're talking about the business, not the football. The football's the easy bit, but the business is mad. So I had a go and I enjoyed it. I would do it again, yeah. I would do it again, yeah. I would. I'd be a bit wiser this time and make better choices, I think.
Would you go further down the pyramid as well, or would it?
To a degree.
Not non-league or anything like that, but
no, it's. I think you find a place where you feel as though you can achieve something. You're a bit more selective. But what you've got now, just going off your thing, what you've got now in the grand scheme of football, there's a lot of me around, not working. You know, and it's not a case now of what experience you bring to the table, it's how much do you cost. And believe it or not, outside of even Championship and below, people are doing it for nothing, literally nothing. They want to get back in and say, well, give me 3 months. I'll do it for nothing for 3 months. Now, that in a way might be classed as desperation. I know where they're coming from, but it affects everything else. If they're doing it for nothing, owners then think, well, if he's doing it for nothing, why are you not? Now, sometimes you think, well, all that work you've put in, all that what you've gained, why should it be for nothing? Because at the end of it, if I don't win the next 3 games, I'm nothing. I'm nobody. So you tend to tread carefully.
While you played, what was your biggest distraction and how did you manage to stay focused?
I'm not sure I stayed focused all the time, to be fair, but when I was a player, my dream was to play for my local team. That was what seemed to be the case then. I'm a Burnley fan. I'm from just outside Burnley. So my club I joined as a kid who I supported was Burnley. That was my dream, just to go there. Now, like I say, it was apprenticeships in them days. So I left school, not sure whether I was going to make it, but then got told, we'd like you to be an apprentice. Will you come in? Yeah, straight away. I was there. The biggest challenge for me was I was one local boy out of 15 apprentices. That was the number in them days. Now, the 15 apprentices comprised of 12 from Newcastle and Sunderland. That was their scouting area. Me, local, and 2 from Northern Ireland. That was the areas, Northern Ireland and the North East. And I'm the guy from round the corner, 4 miles away, going into that culture. That was the hardest thing in my life, that. Even though it was my club, I supported them. These lads from wherever, it was the career move for them. So that was my challenge. My challenge was not to play football. It was how do I learn to understand Geordies? I've got my Lancashire accent. How do I understand them when they're all kicking off and having the bit? How do I understand someone from Northern Ireland? Am I in with them? Do they accept me? What do I have to do for that? So I had to, in a way, think, I've got to really break down these barriers. I've got to either be good or a bit of a lad, you know, and do what they're doing as a gang and going out and stuff like that, or do I want to do a bit of both? So I had to work out in my own mind that I've got to do a bit of both. I've got to join in with the football and be competitive with them, but I've also got to try and socialise a little bit with them, you know, and as daft as it was, I'm from Burnley and backsides are dropping out my trousers. I mean, you know, they're the trend now, aren't they, really, with splits in jeans and all that. Well, that were me. And you've got the lads from Newcastle, they've got the nice gear on, the nice tight jeans. Some of these pods or something they used to call them in them days, I think they were. Well, classy stuff, like, you know. And I'm thinking, wow, these are decent, you know what I mean? I've got to get into that groove, I've got to get into that mindset. And believe it or not, I never drank alcohol till I went to Norwich. 23. Suddenly I went out in Norwich on a Wednesday night and I started drinking pints. Changed my life. I saw it a little bit differently anyway, but I burnt the candle at both ends and I still ended up doing all right. So that's where we were at. That was my education. And I weren't married for a couple of years anyway. I wasn't married and kids. That changes your life.
Coaches might use the services of a psychologist, and if that's if you've noticed a change in that, and also the sort of things they might use psychologists for.
Different.
Let me just get a coffee.
I think they used a lot more, an increasing capacity, and for different reasons. Some coaches will use the psychologist to supplement the education process. You've just heard Mick talk about getting information across to players. There's many mediums, and initially when I went into the game, that was my role as a psychologist. You're trying to play a certain way, or educate players to play a certain way, or prepare for a particular match. And there's a lot of information going to and fro over a 5, 6, 7 day period. And it was my job in the first club that I went to make sure that every single piece and drop of that information not only got to the players, but they actually understood it, and they were able to do things with that information as well. Push it to another level, question it, challenge it, and that facilitates performance. I think psychology in football is split. I think you actually should have 2 in a football club. One for performance, maybe one for the environment, and one for welfare. I think the 2 are totally separate. It is high pressure, there will be welfare issues, and it's a different training and skill set as well. That should be a clinical psychologist who is more medically and clinically trained. Doesn't necessarily have to have gone through a sports psychology pathway. Whereas the other side, I think that is sports psychology, and there's a crossover with coaching. And I also get involved these days with what I actually call interpretation or transfer of messages. The teams are that big. You've got analysts, you've got sports scientists, you've got psychology, you've actually got chefs, restaurants, ground staff. These operations are big. There could be 200, 250 people in an environment. But for the club to be successful, that's the first team, the under-23s, the youth team. You've got to have quite a continual culture, ethos, message and way of behaviour around that whole environment. And I do a lot of watching that, checking it, facilitating it, pointing people, sometimes bringing in external people, but almost being the glue between that to make sure that everybody can operate in harmony towards a shared goal. So it's a big role, and it's a diverse role that can be broken down for different people. Psychology it's a broad subject, it's a vast subject. To be a qualified psychologist, you're going through a degree, you're going through a master's, PhD, professional training, you have 7-8 years worth of education. So it stands to reason, yes, you will know a lot, but you actually won't be able to deal with everyone at once. So in answer, it's developing, there's no doubt about that. It's different, it stretches across different domains, and I think we're still learning. There's still a way to go, but we are getting better.
Having coached a large number of players in your coaching years, which player would you say had the biggest work ethic like that?
That's a good question. To individualise anybody, it's difficult, but everybody brings something different, some different energy to the group for different reasons, you know, and all different circumstances. But sometimes the not so gifted players bring more of a work ethic, more of a determination than the ones that maybe have the skills at hand. From an individual point of view, you can look at, you know, everybody can talk about Ronaldo's of this world, what they brought to the table. Unbelievable work ethic, but a mindset that wanted to be exactly who he is now, the world's best. Certainly one of the world's best anyway. But he was challenging, you know, and rightly so, because his pathway was mapped out in his own mind. And he was strong character, but determined. So he was challenged. You know, he was challenging to work with. So he had a lot of attributes. But then you can look at, you know, others who were as much determined as the next man, but had to really graft at it, had to really put the time in and the effort in and the disciplines in to get to where they wanted to be. So, you know, people like Gary Neville, for instance, you know, I think he's already gone on record as saying, yeah, he had a talent, but he had a massive desire to be the best he could possibly be, and he achieved that. You know, he's captained his country so many times. He's doing what he's doing now, but his determination to succeed was ruthless from the point of view of that's what he wanted, and he wanted to go on that journey, but he knew he had to work for it. It wasn't given. And they're extremes, you know, there's people that fit in the middle of that. You know, they start well, they fade a little bit, then they find a level, and natural selection sometimes comes into place, that as things are moving on, you're plateauing a little bit and you realise, I'm great here, but I don't think I can go there. You know, and that's where it's going, but I'm just short. So naturally, you find a way of saying, well, I'm good at this, that's where I want to be, that's where I want to stay. Good luck, you know, I can't get there. And a lot of other factors, you know, like injuries and things like that can curtail ambition and progress and stuff. But believe you me, to be successful, they're all determined to work and achieve. And when you've tasted it, when you've literally tasted it as a player and as a coach, manager, it's fabulous, because the icing on the cake is what you see. That's the winning. You'll see it at the weekend with the FA Cup final. You'll see it in the European Cup. That's the bit everybody sees, all that euphoria and the disappointment at that moment in time. What people fail to see is the process and that all that work that has gone into that one moment. And it's a season-long thing. It's a career-long thing. You know, and that's not interesting. That's not what the TV tells you, you know. So you'll see the emotional side of it. It means a lot in many different ways, because in any sport, athletics, whatever it may be, the work you have to put in, the commitment you have to put in to be there is huge. It literally is huge, and it's a massive sacrifice, probably at the most optimum time of your life. You know, it's that period where everybody else is doing all this, but you're now focused on just being that. and then it's gone. You can't get that back, but you got the memories of something. Your life starts after that, in a way, or that next life starts after that. So there's your differences. Enjoy it when you've got it. That's the thing.
What sort of characteristics did you find in the players that were the winners?
Determination, sacrifice, those types of things. I said something to the players this morning when I was coaching them that they'd probably done something in 2:45 minutes, which was challenging enough to be mentally tough on them and physically tough on them. So I just threw the question to them, what are you going to do now? You know, from now till tomorrow, what are you going to do? Because I knew in the environment I've been in, those players who had done all that would be preparing for tomorrow straight away. You know, not all of them, but top end, they'd be thinking, right, done, dusted, put it all in. Now, how do I prepare for tomorrow? Because tomorrow's going to be another one. So they're the ones that see it. They're the ones that make the sacrifice to go away, to do their individual work, to rest, recuperate, to get the nutrition back in, to be ready to wake up the next morning bright and breezy to go through it all again and more. So there's an education process in that. We haven't touched on nutrition and stuff like that, but they're vital. Sleep's vital. How do you get sleep? Is it 6 hours? Is it 4 hours? Is it 10 hours? You've got to find a way of getting it, you know, because it is physically and mentally demanding.
The interesting thing that came out in the research is they have this unwavering belief in the impossible. It's almost, when you first come across it, when you're speaking to them, it's kind of a deluded belief in the impossible. But then when you ask how, why, and the process, they've actually got an unbelievably detailed plan of how to actually achieve the impossible. And they might fail first time, second time, and they just simply refine that and keep going. And it's bordering on delusion or even maladaptive perfectionism, but they just sort of right under it, on the cusp of it, and they will literally keep going and will not stop. They have every belief that they are going to win the Champions League, the Premier League, or the World Cup. And that's a slight difference, because I've worked with other Premier League players who are, I am a Premier League player, and that's what I am, and I compete at Premier League level, and I play for X club, and this is what I do. Whereas the others are sort of, how can you be happy with that? And they're few and far between.
I think sometimes with elite sports people, you can sit down with them and talk and converse about the sport they're in, and you ask, you know, you see things that they do and how they express themselves, and then you sit with them and you say, well, go on and explain that to me. How did you do it? They probably look at you and go, I just did it. I just did it. It happened. And then you want more detail, and they're actually so far immersed in what they do that they probably forget a little bit that the practice they've put in has led to that moment, but they haven't known it. They haven't sort of seen it that way. They just see it as reactive, and I'm capable of doing it.
And within the research, a lot of that process actually came out from coaches or even partners or wives, and they sort of say, my husband player X, and the player's like, do I really do that? And they're just rhyming off the list, yeah, you do that every week.
It's a strange situation, really, and it is sometimes unexplainable, but it's also fascinating to have somebody who's very, very good at what he does, but isn't quite sure how it's happened. It's only after, when you analyse it or you're finished, that you reflect on it and think, well, yeah, you know, I did a bit of that, and that was my development process, and that's what I put in place, and it didn't surface until 6 or 7 years later, somewhere else maybe. You know, there are traits in football players that are at certain football clubs that have done terrific, but then they take it to another level somewhere else, and you see the traits from where they've been before coming out somewhere else, and they've added to it. You know, now that is where you just sit back and go, well, you've played a little bit of a part in that, but really that person has took it on. He's took bits of that and that and that, created this environment, and now he's expressing it all.
So do you think they're born a winner?
No. I think to say, you know, you're born, everybody's born with certain characteristics. I think what goes along the pathway is how that jigsaw comes together. Sometimes it comes together efficiently, sometimes it's, you know, it's all over the place. You know, but at some point along that sort of journey, it starts to work its way to being together. Some get it early, some get it late. But it's knowing when it's all coming together. It's knowing when that moment's there. And then there's a little bit of something that we can't describe that comes along, and a circumstance that just pushes it exactly where you want to be.
Even the ones with a genetic advantage. I mean, to take a random example, to play basketball at 5'6", my chances are remote. Most basketball players, I don't know, average height 6'9", 6'10". But there's still a lot of work. It's not just the fact that they're 6'9", they are a basketball player. When you count like the hours and the practice and the actual nature of the practice, you'll be quite astonished in terms of the detail that's gone into getting them there. Birth can give you slight genetic advantages.
I think it shows in the process of selection now, doesn't it, in all sports. You know, what you think you're good at, there's a lot of things going on out there now that is identified, but it puts you into another sport. You know, it's going on all over the world now, where I'm great at running, but you're going in the bobsleigh team. How does that work out? It's far removed from what you think you're getting involved in, but selectively it fits. It fits because somebody's come up with that idea. So the genetics are there, but I think it is that element of process and work and selection, really, from that moment on.
We've got time for about one more question.
Sorry. Go for it. You said when you stopped playing football and went to work, you felt like you were just existing and surviving. What was it that put you on this new path?
Difficult to quantify. I still love football because I still played amateur football. I played Sunday league football. I played futsal. I played five-a-side. Probably maturing, growing up. You get to sort of 26, 27, and you think, all right, I'm doing okay. I've got a house, but average life, I'm going to live till I'm 70. I sort of sat there and thought, is this what I'm going to be remembered for? Just a normal guy who plays football and goes to work. So I want to get back into football. How do I do that? I can't be a player because I'm 26 years old. So the game was evolving. Sports science, sports psychology, fitness, strength and conditioning trainers. And when I was attempting to be a footballer, it was first team manager, coach and a youth team coach. So I just thought, right, I'm going to be one of them. And then I did a little bit of sort of calculation. I thought, well, how long will it take me to get qualified? And what's the sort of skills gap? What's coming in first? And it seemed to be sports scientists that were coming in first, so I chose psychology because I had a longer path to go on, and there were less of them around. And then you just almost apply the skills that I had in sport, even though I didn't make it as a footballer, as a runner, that determination, that addiction, and throw it into the academic studies, which I hadn't done as a child, really. I mean, as I said to one of the groups, I came out with 6 GCSEs, 4 at grade 2. So I wasn't showing outstanding academic ability, but I ended up with a first-class degree, master's, published work, and submitted a PhD. That's work. It's identical to what the football people are doing. Determination, maybe believing in the impossible, a deluded addiction, but I got there. I ended up working in the Premier League and on the European and USPGA tours in golf. I had a dream, chased it, and got there. And I think for you guys, what that means is every single one of you in this room can do it. Everyone.
Excellent, thank you.
All right, good.
Thank you, good questions. Thank you.
Brilliant questions.
We're going to have a short break, guys. The seminars are at 3 o'clock. David, are you okay to do some pictures now?
Yeah, no problem.
David?
3 o'clock is when the first seminars
Hmm?
start. So, guys, just make sure you know what room you're in. 3 o'clock start, okay?
I'm going to get probably some fizzy water or something. Just is that still? I'll have some fizzy water if there is.
Great sales pitch for the courses at the end.
Was it? Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. You all right? Good question. Well done.
Right. Did you ever pop a balloon in Sir Alex ever again?
I thought I'd lost my job that day, to be fair. I thought that was my career over. It's the way it is, isn't it? I thought it was funny, he didn't. No sense of humour.
Did he ever speak about it afterwards?
Yeah.
He did? Yeah. Thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. Let me take this out of here. Sorry.
If you want a picture of me, mate, just give me a shout.
Do you want one? Anytime.
If you want a picture of me?
Yeah, I know. Well, when you've made it, I'll come back. Let me get out of your way here.
Place things up there.
I didn't know where you went, so I didn't say it.
Alright, well done. What are you studying?
Sports coaching.
Sports coaching?
Yeah.
Oh dear. I didn't tell you the whole truth, did I? I was just thinking to myself, that fella's having it, so he's just going to get it, it's on the game. I didn't see it, did it?
I was up there, and I was, did you hear me going?
So I'm doing that as my new business, my legal business.
Of course you can, yeah. All right. Does it? Yeah. Where are you from?
Thank you.
All right, good.
Come on then.
Your granddad will remember me more than you then.
Lovely.
Say hi to him, won't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, do that.
Well, the sport's getting going now, isn't it?
Could you take a picture of us?
You never know. So what position are you? Dictating the game, eh? Dictating the game, why not? Good luck.
She's a good player.
Yeah?
Yeah.
She's very good.
They're good,
Jack,
aren't
we
they?
get a snap
They're
from
into
you
it
for-
now.
Talk about
that's
determined.
Yeah.
She's
Alright.
she's got a lot of guile.
Well, there's nothing wrong with that.